Hello, Planet Earth. This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Bright Island Outreach. Bright Island Outreach is a group of dental professionals that goes down to the Dominican Republic multiple times a year. They take young students, dental students from the United States, as well as dental students from the Dominican, and they all go down and they teach people how to take care of their teeth. People who can't afford to do it, people who can't afford to actually go to dentists, they go into some of the more impoverished areas, and they teach people how to take care of their teeth, and they do teeth extractions, and they do root canals and fillings and cosmetics. There's a lot of different ways you can help out. You can go online at brightislandoutreach.org, and you can buy a T-shirt. I wear mine all the time. They've got really cool prints, really soft cotton. They feel great. I always get compliments on it. People ask me what it's all about, and I tell them. You can donate, or if you feel like you really want to get involved, you can actually go with them and check it out and help them out. They're always looking for volunteers. So, but whatever you do, go online to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and check them out there, give them a follow, and help them out with that online presence. This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Element Stoneworks. Element Stoneworks is a custom granite company. So if you own a home and you would like to put some nice granite countertops in your kitchen or your bathroom, these are your people. If you have a business and you want that nice posh look of granite in your business for your desks or any surfaces that you have, if you want to replace that old laminate, then give them a call. There are two phone numbers you can reach them at: 602-930-8740 or 480-290-1879. Or you can reach out to them on Facebook. Element Stoneworks is insured, and they will take good care of you. They can get you a quick quote, and they will do a professional job. They do all their own installs. They do all their own fabricating. So give them a call and check out their work. They will give you a fair deal, and they are professional, and they get the job done quickly. Also, mention the Deep Thinkers podcast and get $50 off your installation. This episode of the Deep Thinkers podcast is brought to you by Crandall Pest Control. Crandall Pest Control has been family owned and operated in the state of Arizona since they were founded in 2002. Their main deals are termites, scorpions, and general pest control, but they can do pretty much anything you need them to. Their phone number is 480-360-4999. Or you can reach out to them online at crandallpest.com. If you mention the Deep Thinkers podcast, you will get $30 off your first treatment. Again, that's crandallpest.com or 480-360-4999. Hello, Planet Earth. Tonight I am sitting down with black belt Stephan Kesting from grapplearts.com. Stephan is an instructor under...
That would be Philip Jelena in Kajukembo. That would be Danny Nosanto in the Filipino martial arts. I got my black belt under Marcus Suarez, and a combat submission wrestling instructor under Eric Paulson. I think those are the main players, although I've trained with a bunch of other people.
How long have you been doing martial arts? So, I mean, you've had
I wanted to start when I was 8. I wanted to, do judo and karate and kung fu especially. But somehow, and I wanted to do ninjutsu when it came out. I was in that era, but somehow my mom wasn't that hot on having her son sneak around and assassinating people with throwing stars and kusarigama and all the other cool ninja accoutrements. So I started judo when I was 12. So I'm 48 now. So that's a whole bunch of years.
Wow, yeah. So I mean, you've had a long time to train with a lot of different people. How fortunate are you to have a background in judo, being a jiu-jitsu guy right now? I mean, God, if judo guys scare me when I play jiu-jitsu, man. They,
My jiu-jitsu game doesn't resemble the typical judo game. Like when you say judo guys scare you, what's the stereotypical movement that you're talking about? Movement
I'm
style.
talking about the first 15 to 20 seconds in the roll when we're standing on our feet. Normally we style, the majority of the time we start on our knees or sitting down. But when we're coming up, in my gym, we like to compete a lot. I train with Andre Maracaba out of Mesa, Arizona. And he's not all what competition jiu-jitsu isn't all of what we do, but we've got some serious competitors at our gym. We've got Jake Watson, who just took third at Worlds. We've got Clayton Carpenter, who they're both brown belts that are just animals. And we've got a younger guy named Will Reed who's coming up through the ranks pretty strong. So competing is a big part of what we do. Go ahead.
To be fair, my judo experience when I was 12, 13, 14 was once a week. It wasn't extensive.
Okay.
I wasn't competing in the junior nationals or anything like that. I think the most that it did was give me some level of comfort on the feet and condition me to the idea of close proximity and that you're going to be rolling around on the ground with people wearing pajamas and that somehow you're supposed to twist something and make them give up.
Yeah.
And that there are a couple of positions that are better for holding people than others. That's probably the extent of the judo at that age. I went back to it in the early days after UFC 1 and 2. It was becoming pretty clear that grappling was important. I'd already started grappling in large part thanks to the old Gracie in Action videos that we were passing back and forth on VHS.
I love it.
And yeah, it's really the first exposure of like, you know what? All your fancy kung fu shit might not actually work.
Right.
And so then I was lucky enough to train for quite a few years at a university judo club that did a lot of groundwork. They did about 50% groundwork, 50% standing.
Wow. Okay.
So that gave me the opportunity to just, again, more time on the ground, a little bit of instruction, the occasional tidbit here and there. It gave me an opportunity to try out the little bits and pieces that I was cobbling together from VHS tapes that people had, or somebody would have gone and done a private with a black belt, driven 5 hours to do a private. And they'd come back and showed you one of those techniques and you could try it out so it was essentially batting practice because most judo guys at the time, and I think still now, their ground game's pretty weak because the sport isn't oriented towards that. It's guys like Travis Stevens who won a lot of his Olympic matches on the ground. They're definitely the exception, not the rule.
Yeah. The judo guys in my gym are, there's a guy named Urban. I believe his last name's Kierman, but I'm not positive on his pronunciation. But he's a black belt in judo and a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I don't think he trains judo anymore, but he's solely focused on jiu-jitsu, but he has that background of throwing people across the room. There's another guy named Gabe Santa.
And the grip fighting.
Yes.
And the sense of balance.
Right.
And judo guys
leverage.
Typically have got that really aggressive energy. The jiu-jitsu, just making huge stereotypes here. And
of course, it's fine, though. Yeah. No one's going to be offended. It's jiu-jitsu, though.
Yeah. Oh, I've done both. I feel perfectly at home insulting judo, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, the Germans, the Swiss, and the Polish, because I've got a foot in all those camps.
There you go.
I think it's entirely politically correct of me to make fun of the squareheads or I think that the Asterix and Obelix visit Switzerland stereotypes are exactly correct.
Yeah, the way I look at it, man, is every stereotype has a little bit, maybe however tiny it might be, a little bit of element of truth. And the reality is that people from all over the world do have different cultures and different things that make them unique, that some people might look at it and it might be totally foreign. But the way I look at it is I choose to celebrate those differences with humor and love and acceptance rather than anything else like that. So man, say what you want. My listeners will know where your heart's at, and if they're offended, then they're not going to last long listening to my show anyway, because
Excellent.
I'm chill. So
Yeah. But just to get back to the judo for a
yeah,
second,
yeah.
the stereotypical judo player is really intense and kind of moves from, especially on the ground, move to move to move. Whereas
Okay.
the typical jiu-jitsu guy is a little bit more flow with the go. You know, my friend, come here, we play a little bit. But
Yeah.
it makes sense in judo. If you and I are doing judo and you throw me and I start turtling, you've got only a few seconds to launch your attack. If you don't go into that full bore, off balance me, and then try and solidify something, we're getting stood up. So
Yeah.
anybody who's half decent on the ground in judo has probably come up through that judo system where there's a certain pacing. It's not, you don't get these 5, 7, 10-minute matches on the ground. You get 5, 10, 15 seconds on the ground. And
Yeah.
that's all you get, really. I mean, there are ways to stretch that, and I'm sure, depending on which referee you have, you could get a little bit more. I mean, I remember competing. I didn't compete a ton in judo, but I remember competing one time, and the guy tried to throw me, and I got on top, and he put me in half guard, and I was, working methodically to pass the half guard, and I was making progress. And the ref stood us up, and it was my first time. Like, what the hell?
Come on,
I'm
man.
just about to pass the half guard. Well, I wasn't fast enough for that sport. So
Yeah. No, I got you. I sometimes, because I haven't really grown up listening to or watching judo or following judo really. My background was in the United Fighting Arts Federation back in, we'll say 96, 95, 96, 97 was my run in martial arts. I Back then we came across the early UFC tapes, the VHS. I think it was probably 1 through 5 at the time, and we didn't know a whole lot about it, but we knew that we wanted something mixed, my friends and I. And United Fighting Arts Federation, the Chuck Norris system, Chuk Kundo, was the most mixed thing I could find at the time. And so it was American Kempo, the Ed Parker system for the stand-up. It had a few judo takedowns and throws, a little bit of jiu-jitsu on the ground, and then some aikido wrist locks and things like that. But mostly kicking and punching. But so I got a little bit of a taste for it back then in the late 90s. Went on a Mormon mission and kind of was a free spirit after that, and didn't study martial arts for years. And recently got back into it. February 1st of this year, actually, was when I signed up. And I've been a full-on junkie ever since. I go about 4 days a week. Sometimes I'll feel like a real psychopath, and I'll go twice in a day. I'll hit the morning class and then the evening class. But that's if I really want to sleep real good that night. So, but lost 30
I
pounds.
always find the training in the evening screws my sleep up. I far prefer training during the day.
Really? Okay. Yeah, for me,
speaks to the. I don't even like working, like lifting weights. If I have to,
yeah.
And if I'm traveling or something, and the only time is to do a workout is late, I'll do it. But I really don't like it, and typically interferes with my sleep. So it just goes to show the sort of biochemical or neurological individuality of people.
Yeah.
How you're wired isn't how I'm wired.
Yeah. Some of my favorite training partners only go in the evening. And like there's one guy, I'm actually going to have him on the podcast later in January. He's a ghost on social media. His name's John Pfeiffer, but he's just one of those guys. We call him Gentle John because he is anything but. He plays jiu-jitsu. Like, I was just like, what is this guy's deal? I mean, he is just not gentle at all. I mean, any grip he's making, he's moving you around with it, and then I found out later he's a rodeo clown back when he was younger, and I was like,
you can't do anything to me the bulls haven't done to me already.
Yeah, like that makes so much sense. This guy plays jiu-jitsu like he's roping a calf, and he just won our MVP at our end of the year party. Just brutal, and this guy's Neon Belly is something to behold, man. I mean, it's not really fun to experience. Because I experience it a lot, but he's made me great at that at the neon belly defense, man. I my first tournament, I've done 2 tournaments to date, and my first one, my opponent, he beat me, but early on he tried to get me into neon belly, and it just when you have a training buddy that just kicks your ass every single time you go, and that's his go-to move, and somebody else tries to do it and they're a white belt versus a purple belt, it just I was just like, oh wow, this is easy, like.
Well, that goes to the point that the best thing you can do to get better is to make your training partners better.
Right.
Especially, I mean, as a beginner, as a white belt, you don't have that many options to make your training partners better. You can a little bit by, showing that if you do pull off something, show them what it is that you got on them. If
Right.
they get something on you, say, hey, you know what really worked is when you shifted your weight from here to there. As soon as you shifted your weight to there, I was screwed. You can
Yeah.
help a little bit, but especially as you start going up in rank, the best way that, say you're a purple belt or a brown belt, the best way you can get better is to take all the blue belts and teach them all your tricks,
Yes.
and then it forces you to start countering, at a higher level. Instead of, you do attack A, they do the counter that you showed them, the legit counter,
Right.
and
The correct way. Yeah.
then you've got to do the recounter, and it starts going down that counter for counter game.
Yeah. That's eventually what I did. Um, the first time he did, and what he'll do is whenever we've got a new person that's been coming for a couple months, he doesn't do it to him right away, but when they've been around for a while, it's a rite of passage with this guy. He asks him for a roll, and he puts your knee through his knee through your spine, and you tap, of course, and then he goes, okay, you tap from knee on belly, like, okay, that's weird. And then the second time he does it, he doesn't do it as bad, but he'll be like, dude, don't tap from knee on belly. Like he'll be like, I'll give you one, but don't tap from this. This is not a submission. And so I would just be sitting there, just taking knee on belly in my stomach like a champ, like it was my job. And finally, out of frustration, I go, how do I defend this? And he taught me how to defend it. So
Oh, good.
now, whenever he goes for it, I'm trying to defend it because the man who was inflicting the pain is also the one who taught me how to defend it right there in that role. So if
Well,
anything,
that's good because you have run into people
yeah,
whose ego is really invested in having their one technique or their one guard pass or their one submission
man, I got
work.
lucky with my gym. We we
Mm.
got we got a good crew. We've got about 6 brown belts. We've got about 12 purple belts and about 20 blue belts. And I lucked out walking into Power MMA and running into Andre Maracaba and his
Mhm.
students.
It usually comes from the top down. I think sometimes
Yeah,
you can have a school that goes off the rails somehow because of a senior student or because of a bad bunch of guys, but
yeah,
most of the time, how the head instructor is will be reflected in how the students are, especially if he's paying some kind of attention to school culture.
right.
Like, hey, come on, that's a beginner. What the hell are you doing? Putting
Yeah,
knee on face.
yeah, yeah.
But in other
Um,
schools, that's par for the course.
right. Well, and the thing is too is like what it seems like most schools should do. What our school does is yeah, you're going to get beat up. It's a contact sport. You're there to
Hmm.
get better. You're there to get stronger. You're there to improve. But I mean, there's a difference between roughing someone up and just demoralizing someone.
Of
And
course.
and in my gym, if someone saw that the ladder going on, they would probably stop it for one, and then second, they would be like, "Hey, why don't you roll with me a little bit, new guy?"
Yeah.
Um, like
It's
and,
so individual.
yeah,
Some people come in to a club, and unless they get that hard roll, they're never going to train there again. It's like,
right,
man, this is easy. And other
right,
people, probably the majority of people, go into a club, and if they get smashed on their first time, they're like, screw this. It was
yeah.
already weird enough, hugging somebody on the ground, and now,
I'm getting sweat
in
in my
addition to that, I
eyes.
got to deal
That's
with
not
this.
my own.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
So it can be really individual.
yeah. I lucked out, man. We've got such a good group of guys. Andre's he's not like a yes man coach. Like if you're not doing something right, he'll tell you no, you're not doing it right.
Hmm.
So in my gym, if you're looking for someone to just pat your ego and show you some fighting moves, this isn't the place for you. But if you're looking to get your ego crushed, and if you're looking to actually learn, a broad spectrum of jujitsu, whether it's self defense or tournament jujitsu or the broad culture of it, Andre's a great guy. I just lucked out, man. Like it was. Yeah, I walked into Power MMA knowing I was going to join the gym, and Andre happened to be the head guy there. So,
Yeah. Culture is critical. It's an underappreciated aspect of really anything. I'm sure if you one thing I want to start is kiteboarding. That's I think my next adrenaline sport that I really want to.
I had a teacher in high school that was big into that.
Oh, and he was doing it with the early kites too. Then, so he was a real man
on lakes in Arizona. Like
there are lakes in Arizona.
Yeah, well, we call them lakes, man. They're reservoirs that have been dammed up. We've got we've got probably a dozen within 2-hour drive, and they're big enough to take motorized boats out on and stuff. But when the wind is ripping in the city, that out on our lakes, it's really kicking. And he would take him and his boys out there, and this is in the 90s. But yeah,
early adopter.
Oh yeah, I could probably find him and get him in touch with you if you'd like. So.
Well, I'm pretty lucky. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and so there's a world-class kiteboarding area not too far from here.
You're good.
It's just hard. It's hard to find people willing to teach you in the middle of winter, which is what it is right now. I'm totally willing to go out, freeze my ass off, but strangely, the instructors aren't.
Now you're one of those crazy psychopaths that does cross country skiing, right?
I do cross country skiing, not a ton.
No disrespect there. That's amazing. I don't know. That's amazing.
It's not that hard.
I'm from Arizona, man. Like we've got a couple forests. We get snow, every winter in those forests, and a lot of our water in our reservoir lakes is contingent on our forest snowpacks. But no one's cross country skiing around these parts. Like, we have some icy mountains to slide down, but that's about it.
Like so many things, your comfort. Okay, I just mentioned kiteboarding. Kiteboarding in the winter. You'd have to be a real man to go kiteboarding in the winter without a thick wetsuit. But if you're wearing the right gear, it's not that terrible. You're going to freeze your butt off if you go cross-country skiing without the right equipment. By having the right equipment, the right techniques, it's not that bad. You go into the Canadian North and you don't have a bug net, you don't have bug spray, you're going to die.
Yeah.
But if you have the right gear, you're all right. It sort of applies in a sport context as well. If you don't know what you're doing, it's more a technique thing than an equipment thing. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get murdered on the mat. So a little bit of knowledge, and depending on the activity, a little bit of the right equipment just makes such a difference. It's hard. I mean, I remember I used to do a ton of whitewater canoeing, whitewater kayaking. The difference that it made to switch from one type of paddle to another type of paddle was insane. I borrowed a friend's paddle. He says, "You sure you want to touch it?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You're going to want to buy it." And he was right. I was a broke student at the time, and a couple days later, I'd found the $300 or whatever it was to get myself, maybe $400, this carbon fiber paddle, because it just immediate, like there was before carbon fiber paddles and after carbon fiber paddles. It's like in jiu-jitsu, before you learn a grip fight and after you learn a grip fight.
Yeah.
Before you learn a certain technique and before you learned your knee mount escape or your knee mount defense and after. They're different epochs. It's a different era, and you could very clear delineator line in the sand.
Yeah.
Something changed on this day.
I have a buddy who comes on my show. He's a criminal defense attorney down here, but he's also a cyclist, and his brother's an engineer. And they both spend tons of time cycling, and they say
their bike out.
Oh, they say carbon fiber is the way to go. Like that's it, So, but yeah, game changer for a lot of sports. Carbon fiber was.
Well, you take a look at cycling; it's very gear dependent, right? I mean, they spend time tricking their gear out to a difference of an ounce, a difference of 100 grams is gigantic.
Well, especially when you're drafting and pulling off other people's when, just the ounces really just correlate into speed and miles,
Yeah. I don't know what it is in cycling. For running, they say that a 1% reduction in your weight is a 1% improvement in your speed. I don't know if that's exactly true, and clearly there's a limit, right? I can't lose
Yeah.
100 pounds and go twice as fast.
I know for
But
me, go ahead.
no, but within reason, there's a
Yeah.
direct correlation of weight and performance, and I imagine for cycling, it's just as critical, if not more critical.
Yeah. For me, like I've lost 30 pounds this year because of jujitsu. Um,
Excellent.
yeah, it's been wonderful. For the first time, because my weight will fluctuate, and man, I've been as heavy as 295.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, it was a dark time, man. I was dating a girl that was, I was dating her. I started dating her at 210, Stefan, and she was a
That must
pastry
have been a real
chef.
good relationship.
Oh, she was a pastry chef at Le Cordon Bleu, and she was going through the program. We broke up around 2:45, and then the trouble started.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, no, she's a great girl. We're still friends, and she makes amazing.
Okay, I thought you'd been drowning your sorrows in food
Oh, it took us
just
a
because you
while
were
to get
dealing with
there.
her.
It took us a while to get there. I'm one of those
Well,
guys where,
consistency is the key.
yeah, I she's a real good friend of the family, and so
Hmm.
it wasn't like she was ever going away anywhere. It didn't work out, and it took us a little while to get there. But I'm one of those guys where I try to be pretty chill with any ex I have.
Sure.
Hopefully they have nice things to say about me. Hopefully they've
But we're
stolen
getting
enough of my.
totally off top. There's probably a certain number of X's, a certain percentage
Yeah,
of X's. If 4 out of 5 say nice things about you, then we can account for that
yeah,
one,
yeah, for sure.
crazy person.
They should all say nice things about me. They've stolen enough of my good T-shirts through the years to, they think they owe me a solid for that. But,
Hmm.
but we were talking about cross country skiing. Yeah, that what I wanted to ask you about, as far as aerobic and anaerobic workouts, and just insane workouts in general, where does that you've experienced in your life, where does cross country skiing rank? Because I've heard that if you can do that, like you're in shape, you're good, like you're
It
there.
really depends. I'm going to undermine any myth around myself very quickly here, because there are certainly, I think certainly some of the highest VO2 maxes ever recorded have been for cross country skiers. And
Okay.
in part, they're not just running, you're not just using your legs, you're using your arms as well. So it's very
Right.
much like a whole body experience as opposed to just a legs only experience. Yes, 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 I know running's more than the legs. But there is one thing to go out into the bush and use that to tour around, which is kind of where I'm at. I use it more as a vehicle to get out into the bush, sometimes spend some time with my kids. So now I'm shepherding them and picking them up when they fall and
Yeah.
encouraging them. I think going out there to do cross country for aerobic conditioning is not something I've done very often, not for a long time anyway. So there are two types of cross country skiing. There's regular skiing where you're going kind of diagonally. It's kind of like, I don't know, taking steps and sliding on every step. And then there's skate skiing, which looks like you're on skates. And that's the fastest way to go, the most energetically demanding activity, but you also need a perfectly groomed trail. So I'm
Right.
thinking of it more from a getting into the backcountry
Hmm.
point of view. So I think you're giving me too much credit by saying that that's a fantastic, because certainly the way that I'm doing it, it's
Right.
not that aerobically demanding. It might be technically demanding. You might need to use your brains to not die in an avalanche, but you're not out there just giving it. In general, I think if you're out in the wilderness, you shouldn't, you might be out in the wilderness doing your cardio training to get yourself a cardio burn, and that's great. You're going on a trail that you've gone on 100 times. You're climbing a mountain that you've climbed 100 times. You're going on a cross-country ski route that you've done. But if you're out there for sort of exploration, then you shouldn't be going anywhere near. You should be going a level or two below what you
Right.
know you're capable of, at least. Because if you're tired, as you should be if you're doing cardio, you're not going to be making great decisions. I've got a friend who was trying out for the the JTF2, which is kind of the Canadian equivalent of Delta Force.
Okay.
And a lot of their testing process is, do this crazy set of sprints and now solve a children's puzzle. Go and carry these heavy bags up to the 5th floor of this tower and now crossword puzzle. So trying to do mentally challenging tasks while physically exhausted. Because, of course, physical exhaustion doesn't only make cowards of us all, it also makes idiots of us all.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
The ability to just keep thinking, I think, is one of the most important, especially in a sport like jiu-jitsu. Not saying that boxers don't think, but they're not monitoring as many different things as you and I are when we're rolling. Oh, where's this guy's foot? Oh, where's this guy's grip? Oh, every time he goes for this grip, he goes for that hip movement.
What can he
wonder when he's going to open his legs? Yeah, exactly. Which of these 1,000 techniques that I know is he doing? Oh, he's doing something that's not any of the techniques that I know. All right, now I got to try and figure it out before he manages to pull it off.
Yeah.
Boxers don't very often have to deal with a new punch.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're not thinking. They don't have to think 3 moves ahead.
I'm not sure Lomachenko isn't thinking 3 moves ahead.
That's true. Fair enough.
But he's a special case.
Yeah. But I mean, with jiu-jitsu, that's one of the overall benefits of it is the cerebral focus that you have to be present. Yeah. Even like I remember early on when a woman would ask me to roll, and you hesitate for a second, and that woman is going to choke you out and pop your head like like
and
you can't.
Just made her day.
Yeah, and she's stoked, and really she should be. Like that's why we're all there. I got beat up by a girl last week. Yeah, there's a blue belt. She's actually a 17-year-old girl, and she's got a fight to win this fight to win card coming up in Arizona. I've got 3 friends on it. Jake Watson, of course, who you've talked to a little bit on Twitter, has a title fight on it.
Oh, good.
So I believe it's a no-gi. I think all of it's no-gi. Aurora Bristro is the girl I rolled with, and she's a blue belt that is fighting on this card. And then Jesse Jack from Verde Valley Jiu-Jitsu is a purple belt fighting on it. So I am so stoked for this card. I cannot wait to go out and see some of my friends just do battle. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Pretty stressful to watch your friends and loved ones do battle. There's a lot of sympathetic arousal.
Yeah.
Sort of like arousal in the sense, I suppose I should specify, of adrenal response.
Well, it evokes strong emotion. It arouses several emotions across a broad spectrum, because when they're winning, it is glorious, to see your friend, or when they're down. Like I had a friend in this last tournament who was down 10-0, and he got on top and choked someone out and won with 2 minutes left. And I went from being like, oh, bro, like, oh, man, like, dude, I want you to win, to like, yeah, that's my boy out there that just pulled that off, and he's sunk that choke on me 100 times, The
hero's journey right in front of you.
Right, yeah, it was awesome, but yeah, it's definitely a wide range of emotion, and I think that's one of the things that, for me, that was the real big addiction. That's what really just was like, okay, yeah, I love this now. It was, I've been training for maybe less than 2 months, absolutely less than 2 months, and I went to our first tournament, and my team took first place. And just watching the guys in my gym are animals. My team's taken first place in the state 2 years in a row, the adults and the kids, and I believe we've won the last 3 straight tournaments we've been in. It was close, but Steph and the people in our gym, we just got some genetic freak. You know how every now and again there's someone with genetics that changes the game. They're either super strong. It's like you shouldn't be able to do that, but they're so strong it's changed. Oh, they're so flexible, or they're so fast. And we've got guys like that in my gym. There's this brown belt named Eddie that literally can just grab your hands and rip your grips off his lapels. It's just
CRISPR is coming, and eventually they'll figure out the genetics for grip strength.
Can you
And so
imagine?
there's hope for all of us.
Let's talk about CRISPR and jiu-jitsu for a moment. Let's nerd out on this. Can you imagine how bad it's going to get when arms can go both ways and everybody has six?
That, I'll go with them increasing strength first before they go to 6 arms, but you never know.
Yeah.
I
Hey.
think I saw something on I forget where I heard about it. I think there's now home CRISPR kits where you can work on bacteria that are supposedly, they're not designed for human use, but it's not, there are people starting to do human experimentation. There was some dude who injected himself. I think he
Wow.
injected his forearm with what he thought was a CRISPR-based strength enhancing gene splicing technique. I don't think it worked, but I don't think he's dead either. Otherwise, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, it would have been all over the place. I think CRISPR is amazing. I think that technology has potential to not just increase our life, but just, I mean, how many genetic diseases do we carry in our genome that can kill us before the age of 3?
Sure. I'll give you a total yes, but there. The yes, but yes, for sure. You and I and almost everyone we know has been touched by modern medicine. And we all know people or are people who've been kept alive in a way that we wouldn't be alive 10,000 years ago.
Right.
Completely agreed. That being said, and we're all taking antibiotics now that were all developed 50 years ago, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, and they're saving our lives.
Right.
How many new patents for malaria drugs have been filed in the last year compared to patents for hair loss supplements or new types of Botox? So I wonder with the CRISPR, yes, for sure, they could cure, I don't know, Huntington's. I don't know how genetically based Huntington's is off the top of my head. Let's take sickle cell anemia. That's a good genetically based. Sure. They can probably cure it, and I'm sure some people will be. But how much energy is going to be placed on making hair that never falls out, pecs that are gigantic with never lifting a weight, fat cells that eat themselves and go away, and so you have like 2% body fat, and all the aesthetic components of CRISPR, let alone the whole, assuming you can modify intelligence, and now if you don't modify modify your children, you put them at a huge disadvantage. All that stuff notwithstanding.
Myostatin inhibitors and things like that.
Sure. How much of it is going to be purely aesthetic and sort of vanity? I think quite a lot. If you take a look at patents filed for medicine, I imagine the patents filed for CRISPR treatments, they're going to be really expensive to test. Anytime something's expensive, who's got money for that? It's
the pharmaceuticals and and the thing is too with CRISPR, it's kind of like a one-shot deal. Like you're not only fixing the person that you're giving the shot to, but you're also fixing their kids.
It depends if they do it on the germline or they don't do it on the germline.
Okay.
Like if they do some kind of myostatin inhibitor and they inject it in your muscles, presumably that'll work on your cells in your arms. I think it's quite a different thing to then go in and fool around with the germline, essentially injecting it into your testicles or your wife's ovaries and getting it to do its work within the sperm or the egg. I think that's a different process. So there's CRISPR for regular body somatic cells, and there's CRISPR for germline cells. And I don't know
under the impression that it was almost like copying and pasting the genetic code from what you wanted to what you have, and that would in turn, if you had children after that, they would.
I think it would depend on how it's done, but in any case, it's a one and done thing for you.
Right.
So you come up with a magic CRISPR recipe that makes you, I don't know, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 220 pounds at 2% body fat, an IQ of 200, and cures your Huntington's.
You throw in 6'4" and I'm sold.
Yeah. Well, they do it one time, and then you're done. right?
Yeah.
It's not like they need to do it every month. So it's going to be bloody expensive for one,
Yeah.
because in order to make that money back, that's going to be, they can't put you on the continuity plan and charge you every month
Right.
like they can for, what is it, Rogaine?
Yeah.
Clearly, with a shaved head, I don't know much about these things,
Yeah.
but
You
Rogaine or statins or any other kind of blood pressure drugs,
yeah.
where they basically have a captive audience for, what is it, 5 to 20 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be one and done. You're gonna be
CRISPR's
fixed.
it could be the beginning of the end of a large chunk of modern medicine, just because, especially like if we can make it to where they can pass it on through the to their
Mhm.
children, over time it's just we're going to run out of people that aren't affected by it, whether it's
Mhm.
through their parents or through directly to them. So
I wonder when the first Olympics are that are going to be affected by this. No, we didn't. We didn't do any doping, Russian style doping. Although
yeah.
it's unfair to just put that at the feet of the Russians. You know, we just have these
Well,
amazing athletes
they did
who
kind
have
of
got,
invent it.
sure, and the last to abandon it.
Yeah, yeah. I
Have you seen
mean,
that amazing documentary? What is it, Icarus?
is that,
Is the story of the Russian doping program.
I'll have to check it out.
Well, you must have some guy who's just on standby there to look stuff up for you. No?
No, me, no. I'm low key, man. I do all my editing and everything like that, man.
Oh, come on. How are you going to
Yeah.
go? How are you going to go big? Yeah, it's Icarus. I just looked it
I
up.
you have a magnificent following on YouTube. I am like a maybe like a half a percent of what you're doing. I just hit 144. No thousand behind that or nothing. Just a straight up 144.
Well, I
It's
think
pretty.
your first 100 are a lot harder than your next 900. So
I hope
congratulations.
so, because the first half I drove everybody I knew absolutely insane, saying, "Hey,
Hmm.
you guys got a Gmail account, right?" you know.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm at 144, and that's a pretty big time for me there, Stefan.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's been encouraging. I've been doing this maybe 4 months, so I'm at episode 18. I just
That's
released
going at a pretty good
tonight.
clip. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. I'm encouraged by it. What makes this happen for me is quality guests like yourself, interesting people that have interesting things to say. And I mean, you do so much cool stuff in your time. I mean, you're a firefighter. I mean, how cool is that?
Well, I still like it.
I have a buddy, one of my best friends. His brother-in-law is a firefighter. He's the only amputee firefighter in the state of Arizona.
Really?
He's missing a leg, his leg at the knee,
Okay.
and I believe that they wanted him to retire, and he just like hell, I'm going to retire. And from what I understand, a lot of the firefighters in the community kind of banded together on this, and they were like, "No, this guy's legit. We trust him. Like we know he gets it done." And yeah, I don't know if I don't know how he got it done, but I know that there was some red tape that he had to really push through in order to keep his status as a
Oh,
firefighter. And he's within the next couple of years, I think within the year, he's taking all the tests and studying to be a captain right now. So
okay.
he's doing great. But
Well, that's amazing. How did he lose the leg?
he's just a really active guy, and he had broken his legs and his foot so many times that this last time he broke it, they went in and they're like, "Dude, we don't have anything left to put the bolts into. Like you're just there's there's nothing left. Like you've broken your foot and your leg too much. We can't do it. Like we can't keep it." It's what I understand. It wasn't anything horrific or giant, because I moved away and he had two legs, and when I came back he had one, and I was like, "Whoa, what happened?"
Did I miss something?
Yeah, but I mean, I know that. I mean, this guy is one of those guys who, rock climbing and going to the lakes and stuff, and cliff jumping, and this guy's punished his body through the years, and now he's in his mid to late 40s, and yeah, he just it was one of those things where I was like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense. They can only screw, and
Mhm.
attach things until there's nothing left to attach it to, up, down in your foot. But
Mhm.
it was crazy. But
Well,
yeah,
foot injuries are tricky. Foot injuries are tricky. There's such crappy circulation down there that they take like the same injury in your hand versus your foot. It's like twice as long to heal, easy,
yeah,
and it may never heal like exactly properly anyway,
yeah.
which apparently it didn't for your friend.
That's one of the reasons why leg locks and heel hooks are just so terrifying.
Hmm. Well,
Is
it all comes down. That really comes down to culture, right? I mean, it's a little bit strange that we're willing to allow people to choke us unconscious, but we're assuming that the person's going to let go after they achieve their mission, which 99.999% of the time is true. When it comes to leg locks, you can do a lot of damage quickly, right?
yeah,
Little movements can tighten that bloody heel hook. If we're talking when we're talking modern leg locks, we're basically talking heel hooks and toe
yeah,
holds. Yeah, there are a few other uh, submissions. There, you see the occasional knee bar, you see the occasional calf slicer, but really we're talking heel hooks
yeah,
and toe holds. And a little tweak there can make such a huge difference that you really have to trust the people you're training with
yeah. It's
to do catch and release stuff.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. They still make me nervous, man. I'll tap pretty quick if someone, and I haven't
As
gotten
you
caught in
should,
too many. But I've seen
as
YouTube
you should.
footage. There was these guys playing basketball, and two guys start jawing back and forth at each other, and it starts to get physical, and it goes to the ground, and one guy gets another guy in a heel hook, and he
Oh, really?
stops, and he just goes, "Listen, dude," like he goes, basically he's saying, "Don't test me because you'll never play basketball again." And that's when it cuts out. But they pull him apart. He doesn't execute it. But like just seeing that footage and like knowing what that guy can inflict in that moment is just like, ooh, dude, just oh, like I mean, yeah, it was crazy footage.
If you do a search for rugby heel hook, there's a
Rugby heel hook.
match where uh, the very first result is a YouTube video. I'm going to turn the uh, where clearly in the scrum the guy does a full-on heel hook
Mm,
on his opponent with an intent to injure. And
mm.
the guy not only should he get banned from rugby, the guy should be
Yeah,
charged with
with the
assault.
salt. Yeah,
Like
that's gnarly. I
like
know a little bit more about rugby than a lot of Americans. I lived in England and Wales for 2 years,
okay.
so
Yeah,
oh
I just watched it again as we were talking. It's horrific, and it's totally. I mean, all kinds of bad stuff happens in rugby. I think it's actually an insane sport.
yeah,
Everybody I know has been. The only good thing about rugby is you're less likely to have concussions than in football, maybe. But orthopedically, it's horrific.
yeah. Well, and I think I have a good buddy of mine, Corey Dodds. He's actually a high school football coach now, American football. But he played for the University of Utah, and he's got two BCS rings, one under Urban Meyer, one under Kyle Whittingham, which you kind of have to be into football to know who those guys are. But they're both pretty big names in the sport. And he's a linebacker, a defensive player, and just brutal. He tells me that the big problem in American football is when you land on your back and the back of your head hits the ground. He said that's the brutal one you have to look out for, and that's the one that they're not really addressing with this
And they're
whole
falling on grass or turf.
right.
So now I've actually written about mainly known for my site grapplearts.com. I've got another site as well called selfdefensetutorials.com
Okay,
where I'm writing more about the martial arts and self-defense aspects of life.
okay,
And one of the things I've written about, and I don't think has gotten enough attention, is if you and I get in a street fight, we're pushing each other, and I mouth off about your girlfriend, and you turn around, and we square off, and you land that right cross on my chin and knock me out
on cement,
on cement. I fall back and hit my head on
done.
cement. It's like you've punched me, and then you've climbed up 6 feet above me and dropped a cinder block on my head.
I had a friend
And
that got in that situation.
the receiver or the giver?
He was the giver.
And did he end up having major legal problems after that?
He actually was in a situation. Let me tell this. Yeah, let's tell the story. It was someone's birthday party. I wasn't even there. Someone's birthday party, and they were all in a limousine, and two brothers who drunk and stupid assholes. I don't even know these guys, actually, these two brothers. But one of my best friends, one of my closest friends, was passing out toward the end of the night. He was sitting there in his chair, just kind of leaning forward, kind of falling asleep in the limo. And these two guys go, "Why don't we open that door while the limo's going and see what happens?" And the guy whose birthday it was says, "Hey," because my friend, he's no slouch. He doesn't do jujitsu, but just 7 brothers in his family. All of them fighters, all of them super strong and athletic. This guy knows what he's doing. The guy makes the comment. The birthday boy makes the comment. You get your ass kicked. Maybe it was a bachelor party. I don't know, but he says you get your ass kicked. One of the brothers pops him in the mouth. I mean, that drunk, that stupid. Shortly after that, they stop, and the guy who was asleep, his other brother, says something to the effect of, "Hey, man, like, you're going to hit this guy in the face. You're going to try to open the door for my brother and push him out of a moving vehicle. You need to chill out," So this guy who was a former U.S. Marine circled on him and rounded on him, and my buddy is a fighter. Like if these guys had chosen to do UFC, they would have done well. If they had chosen to go down the training route, but they didn't. I don't know. Okay. One of them got knocked out. The first guy got knocked out. Yeah, the first guy that rounded on my buddy got knocked out because when he hit the ground, his other brother went crazy and ran at my other friend. And the guy that had been asleep before grabbed him around the waist and just kind of wrestled him to the ground and pinned him down and was just like, "You need to look after your brother right now." Like, you just kind of screaming like, "You don't need to be fighting right now. Your brother's messed up. You need to look after him." So he kind of got off him, and the guy ran to his brother. And at that point, when they had reached their destination, the guys who'd gotten beat up, their friends were coming outside. And so rather than get in a situation where it was 2 or 3 on 7 or 8, they just bugged out.
Smart.
The next day, my buddy called the police station and did a self-surrender. And when they asked him, "Why did you take off?" He's like, "Dude, there was 7 on 2 or 3, man. Like, these numbers were, even if they didn't kill me, I was going to jail, like, and I didn't do anything, So, I mean, it was clearly a situation of self-defense, but yeah, man, the guy didn't die, but he definitely had some serious medical issues after that evening, which is unfortunate because.
No, that second hit on the pavement has sent people to jail for 5, 10. I think I've seen 17 years. So yeah, like you go and you're a tough guy outside a bar, you punch somebody in the nose, they go down, but the fight's not over. So in that sense, actually, the grappling and the jiu-jitsu is actually safer, unless of course you use that judo throw and Uchimata the guy into a fire hydrant, at which point it's just as bad.
Yeah.
So it's I think John Hackelman, the Chuck Liddell's trainer, said something like the single biggest thing that you can do to stay safe is to not be drunk in a public place.
Yeah.
And really, when you go through your little Rolodex of every story you've ever heard about every fight you've ever seen, it's either road rage or drunk idiots. And smart people who've become drunk idiots, or people in a place where there are drunk idiots. And that sums up probably 80 to 90% of all the bad stories we've ever heard of, we've ever participated in. And it's just, people don't think about that, and they don't teach that in, your urban combatives course. You're going to guy gouge him, and you're going to rip his throat out, and you're going to take him down, you're going to smash his head on the pavement, and you're going to re-stomp the groin. Yes, it's probably better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Old Kaju Kambo aphorism. But those aren't the only two options,
Right.
right? So it brings us to the supremacy, really, of the choke in a self-defense situation, because a properly applied choke can either get somebody under control right away
Mm-hmm.
or put them out in a fairly safe manner pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
You know,
anything else
or a
is
submission
standing there and
hold.
duking it out.
You
Sorry, go ahead.
or a submission hold. You can sit there and just control someone and just control a situation.
Yep.
If it's a bar fight, and there's 30 people jumping around, it might not be the best option. But
Agreed.
in a bar fight, your best option really is getting the hell out of the bar
Yep. Or
before.
arming, or like if it's really life and death, arming yourself.
Yeah.
Like a couple of pool cues and Filipino martial arts.
Yeah.
That's not a bad strategy at that point.
Yeah.
But it's such an uncontrolled situation, especially if you're in a place where there's a lot of concealed carry. Some idiot's going to pull out a gun.
Man, I live in Arizona, so I mean, I have a gun with me right now here in my little studio. And basically, I mean, Google our gun laws sometimes when you have a minute, but people think that Texas is where it's at with guns in the United States. No, it's Arizona. Like, I could walk out into the street, pick up a gun, conceal it, go anywhere in it. I could, unless there's like a no firearms posted sign on there, I can go anywhere. I can meet a total stranger, and as long as neither of us are felons, I can sell him that gun that I found earlier that day, and it's totally legal. So
we're going to go down the. I mean, I live in Canada where we have quite a few less mass shootings than you guys do.
Right.
So I've had this debate with a lot of American friends who are gun enthusiasts, and I get it. Guns are super fucking cool. I have a couple myself, and I understand it. The argument is always, well, we can't get rid of them now. There are too many guns in the system already. So if we got rid of them now, then only bad guys would have the guns.
I think there's 10 times as many guns as people in this state alone.
That doesn't surprise me. On the other hand, you got about one mass shooting a day in the States. That's a lot. Like that system. There's something broken about that system.
I mean,
and honestly, you would think if the NRA was that, I'll really get into hot water here, but if the NRA was that desperate to keep guns in people's hands, then they would be the number one advocate for like doing something to cut down on these mass shootings. And I don't think arming everybody so that if there's a mass shooting in a movie theater, that everyone can pull their guns out and start blazing in all directions. Is the way to go.
Sam Harris has a guy on one of his podcasts named Scott. I don't remember the last name, but he was a cop in LA for like 15 years serving high-risk warrants. And now he teaches people how to use their weapons, like AKs, handguns. I think he's the guy that taught Keanu how to use his weapons for John Wick and John Wick 2, which if you haven't seen those, it's great. I
haven't seen the movie. I don't get a chance to watch a lot of movies. I did see the little YouTube clip of Keanu running from target to target, dropping weapons and pulling out handguns and reloading, and that's cool.
He gets a guy in a triangle, and the guy gets to his feet, and he blows his head away, man, in this triangle. I mean, it's a great mixture of jiu-jitsu and
without taking out your own legs. Right?
Like
you need muzzle control.
Yeah, like it's he gets his hips really, he's up on his shoulders. It's like he's almost like he's getting stacked when he gets this off. But there's some really cool fighting in those movies, man. They're pretty intense. The overall plots are probably
nominal.
They're not winning any awards for best writers, but the action is pretty insane. This guy, the comment he makes is like, listen, if you have a gun and you don't know how to use it, you're not helping the situation. If you have a gun and you don't know how to identify yourself to law enforcement as like I'm a good guy with a gun versus a bad guy with a gun, like you're not going to be helping the situation. So he said the last thing we want, and this guy, total gun loving, gun carrying, makes his living off of guns.
Mhm.
He says the last thing we want is more civilians out there with guns who don't know how to use them. So I think when
Sure.
people
So
are,
make it. I think it's not my line, but make it like having a pilot's license, right?
yeah, I
You
don't
or
know,
I
or a
could become
driver's
pilots
license, you know.
as a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
At a
against something
minimum,
like that. I think people, when you talk about
and
guns,
I think most people on either side of the gun divide could probably agree on that. I
yeah,
don't know. Some will take like a car is actually designed for different things.
uh huh.
It can kill people.
Hmm.
They do kill people by the thousands.
More oftenly than not, it's completely accidental. It's not even what the machine is made for, and it kills people.
Sure,
Where guns
sure.
are meant to kill. No
Yeah.
getting around it.
So I would say somewhere between a driver's license and a pilot license, and that way, if some guy pulls out a gun or has a gun at his home, oh, well, this guy's gone through a ton of training.
Right.
So, and uh, not just some guy who wandered on down to the Walmart to buy the latest assault rifle,
Yeah.
depending what he's doing.
Yeah,
So,
it's more or less that easy to get an assault rifle in Arizona. I've gone on my lunch break with a boss who wanted to buy one, and he picked one up. It was rad.
yeah.
Early on my Instagram, I got a picture of the situation going down. Um, but
Man, the
I
amount
carry a
of
gun for this reason. Um, when it's time to herd the cattle and you don't have any other choices, I want to be on a horse. Like I said, this is Arizona.
and you have to assume that everyone else is armed.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Here in Arizona, like your road rage incident can go really bad.
Yeah.
Like you let it go. You know,
Yeah.
um,
No, I would say I'm towards the liberal leftist Canadian approach to this. But if I lived in Arizona, I don't want to be the guy at that road rage incident without my own peace.
right,
So I think
and
it
that's
needs
the
to be a
thing.
systemic. There needs to be a systemic solution. And I don't know what the big picture is, but how about way more training before you can go buy a gun? Of
Yeah,
course, that would impinge on your right to buy. I mean, honestly, in terms of preserving civil liberties, that's a completely horseshit argument because if the government wants to take you out, it's going to be from a drone strike from
right,
30. You will never see it coming. That
right,
that assault rifle isn't going to keep you safe from the
right,
drones. That handgun's not going to keep you safe from the cops.
right,
That rocket launcher isn't going to allow you to overthrow the results of a bad election.
right.
That depending which interpretation of the Second Amendment you talk about,
Yeah, I
is really not applicable anymore.
my opinion on this might make me unpopular, but between this generation growing up so soft
Hmm.
and people not having respect for life and respect for weapons with the mass shootings, I'm all about bringing back national service. You graduate from
Hmm.
high school, you do 2 years in the military, one in the States, one somewhere across the world. Send some of these people to. I did 2 years in England, in Wales, for a Mormon mission. And
Hmm.
granted, that's a pretty cush place to land.
Yeah.
When I had friends in Fiji or Brazil or Russia,
Yeah.
like there was two Mormon missionaries that got kidnapped in Russia. They made a movie about it called the Saratov Approach. And when they when they found the guys, they moved him to England, and I served with one of them. So I mean, living in England, I was pretty safe, but it made me miss and appreciate and love America, home,
Sure.
even
Yep.
more. Um,
Be a way
you
to
know,
get people out of the country, see the world.
yeah,
It would be. I mean, I'm like I said earlier. I'm part Swiss. They have a national service thing. I
yeah,
think they've got. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's optional if you're female. It's mandatory if you're male. I think. If you do the military route, you can either do it all at once and then just go in for short little refreshers, or you can do it like a whole bunch of months every year. If you want to go the civil service, and like build trails or I don't know, pick up garbage or what, I don't know exactly
yeah,
what it is. You can do that instead of the military. So it's kind of the conscientious objectors route. I
right,
object to guns. I object to violence. All right, fine. You can go do the civil service stuff, sort of like, I don't know, a Peace Corps within Switzerland itself.
yeah,
And I think it really does bond people and help create a national identity, which is probably not a bad thing in this time of division.
Yeah, well, with the military side of it, because I know Italy has it. Um, I think Italy has it. I know Spain has it. Um, Croatia had, or they when, in '98 when I was on my mission, there were missionaries from all over Europe in England, and a lot of these guys had come out instead of when they were 19, they came out when they were 20 or 21 because of their national service, and so they
Mhm.
came out after the military. And I'll tell you, man, like in the age group, the guys, and I know a lot of them were a year or two older, but the maturity level of some of those young men was just far beyond what guys had if they had not done their national
Mhm.
service, just because they'd already been away from home. They'd already been,
That's a big one,
yeah.
and it's some kind of socialization as well.
Hmm.
Socialization with consequences, and I mean, being to steal a Sebastian Junger term, a member of a tribe,
Right.
where you actually, are existing sort of in a group, in a team to in a potentially difficult situation, even if it's just boot camp. That's
Hmm.
way more difficult than what most people have gone through in their lives.
Right.
I mean, of course, there are people who've pushed themselves so hard that by the time it gets to boot camp, the whole thing's kind of a joke, which is great because they've experienced difficulty, they've experienced hardship, but most people haven't. And
Right.
I think there'd be a strong argument for that. I
Yeah.
guess the only argument against that, what would be the argument? Let's just go down the devil's advocate route.
Yeah.
I'm running short on time here, but let's
Yeah.
explore this devil's advocate route. The argument would be,
Money.
yeah,
Money.
send my son to the military so he can be used as cannon fodder for a war that I don't believe in,
Right.
to go secure oil fields in a country we don't care about, so the multinationals can make more money.
Yeah.
That would be, and I think I mean, I could refine that argument. So how do we
And the
get around
problem
that?
is we are at war. That's the hitch and the giddy up.
Well, how about this? How about this as a counter argument? If it's mandatory service, then the sons of senators and the sons of congressmen and the sons of presidents will also be in this, and they'll have skin in the
Absolutely.
game, as opposed to having an army that's mostly poor kids
And
with no
minorities.
social opportunity. I
Yeah.
mean, there are exceptions, of course, but there's an awful lot of old men voting to go attack countries where their own sons are never going to have
Right.
any chance of dying.
Right.
So that might be the counter argument, the counter argument.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a complicated situation. But I mean, I think with national service, in a perfect world, let's take it back 10, 15 years, before, or let's take it back 20 years, say, just to be safe, before the
For
mess in the
9/11.
middle, yeah, before 9/11, before the mess in the Middle East re-erupted. Um, if we had implemented it there, I honestly believe that American students wouldn't be getting offended at microaggressions and every little thing on campuses, just because they wouldn't have. When you feel as safe as America makes you safe, it's almost like you're looking for reasons to stimulate that hardship in your life. I mean, yeah, everybody has.
I don't appreciate that tone of voice that you used with me, Jesse. There, I feel very threatened and microaggressed, and I just want you to put you on notice there.
Well, Stefan, you should not feel threatened by me at all. I am a guppy white belt. you know, um, yeah,
Oh yeah, but my feelings were hurt. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to know. Like, if you're not actually trying to make our way in the academic setting, specifically the humanities academic setting, I think it's worse from what I can tell in
yeah,
the humanities as opposed to the engineering department.
right,
I mean, it does seem like a lot of these, it's almost like trolling going on, and then everyone else gets all
yeah,
upset because in some university at some time somebody used the wrong pronoun or didn't ask the entire class as to what their preferred pronoun was, and
right,
thus the one person who yesterday was wearing a dress and today is wearing jeans and cowboy boots and tomorrow is going to be wearing a clown suit and a tiara,
Yeah.
got mad because it wasn't the right pronoun du jour. I
Mm.
mean, it's pretty rare that that stuff happens. To make a big, it's like, at the tail end of when the whole feminist movement was out, of course there were crazy feminists. There are crazy everything.
Right.
So now you got some crazy woman who's losing her shit because some guy held a door open for her going into a building.
Yeah.
And she's crazy anyway. She was either be crazy with feminism or she'd be crazy with, her cats, or she'd be crazy, thinking that the aliens are talking to her. And this happened to be the thing that she glommed on, and she gets all the press. So
Yeah.
I'd like to think that but I do agree 100% that hardship makes people better. And I think that's ultimately, just to wrap this or bring this back to the martial arts point, I think that's the huge benefit of martial arts training, because most of the time it's optional unless you're being forced into it by your parents.
Right.
Most of the time it's optional, and it's difficult, and you could fail, and you're gonna sweat, maybe bleed, and maybe get hurt, and that's good.
At least ache.
Yeah, and you can go a lot further and put up with a lot more than you think you can. And even in your training, you probably, I don't know what you did before, but every time that you push yourself physically in one area, well, you did the more traditional martial arts, or the traditional eclectic martial arts.
When I would work out through my mid-20s and early 30s, it was just weights and cardio at the gym.
Yeah.
So it would just get boring, and
But
I'd stick with it.
That counts as something. If you're doing weights hard, it's difficult. If you're doing cardio hard, it's difficult. Every time you do something difficult that you could fail at, that hurts, I think you become a better person. And I think, of course, everyone should do jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
I recognize that maybe it's not for everybody, but if you're not doing jiu-jitsu, then you should be, I don't know, go run a marathon.
Yeah.
Start with a 10K, then do a half marathon, then do a full marathon. You don't have to do it 1,000 times. You don't have to do it every day for a year. Just do it once. Or it's like that super cheesy thing. Every day, do something that scares you. Well, I don't know about that, but if you can't swim, learn to swim. If you've never left the country on your own, leave the country on your own. Do something that challenges you, and I think you'll be a better person rather than staying in the comfort zone.
Absolutely.
What was that? Right. No comfort in the growth zone. No growth in the comfort zone.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Occasionally yell at it, guys, at work. I'm being totally tongue-in-cheek. But in the fire department, it's just fun to yell at people.
Oh, for sure. No, my buddy used to always say, he was a bouncer at a nightclub, but he used to always say, bartenders are the firefighters of the world and bouncers are the cops of the world. That's how everybody loves firefighters. People feel differently about cops. But so
yeah, I think there are many stereotypes you can have about firefighters, some good, some bad. But I think generally more affable, generally more friendly. A cop looks at you and says, "Okay, what are you carrying?"
Right, he's got to size you up as part of his job.
Or what drugs do you have? Oh, telling me that you just come from the Safeway? You're lying.
Yeah,
because they get lied. It'd be like being a customs agent. Man, everybody's lying to you. How's that going to change your worldview?
Exactly, it's gonna jade you a little bit. We're running a little short on time, and I want to respect your time. We didn't have a chance to talk about evolution or Arctic biology and plants and all the other different things that you know about, and I would love to pick your brain on, but we'd have to do this again another time.
Let's do it in the new year.
Absolutely. Before I leave, I'd like to ask you one other question, though. What kind of music are you listening to these days?
A lot of blues.
Nice.
A lot of blues. And my latest musical discovery came from a probably massively drug-fueled recording binge that, oh God, who was it? One of the Allman Brothers.
Good stuff.
Eric Clapton went into the studio and recorded for the Layla sessions, and there's a jam. Basically, they burnt out 3 or 4 technicians doing the recording. Basically, they just kept they kept the tape rolling for 24 hours while those guys were in there. And so jam number 2 and jam number 5.
Okay.
It's got all the wailing blues, guitar, rock type stuff that you
I love the Allman Brothers. Love Clapton. Love Stevie Ray Vaughan. Vaughan Brothers.
Yep.
Love
check out Derek and the Dominoes.
Okay.
The Layla sessions. Jam number 5, spelt with a Roman numeral V. It's on YouTube. It's maybe 20 minutes long. It gets good after 4 minutes. It gets amazing after 8 minutes. So that's my musical recommendation.
All right,
totally
man, I'm on it.
So
I'm on it. All right, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast, man. And thank you for all the content that you release. Any of my listeners that are not following Stephan Kesting, go ahead and give him a follow on YouTube. You won't be sorry. One thing I would like to say to you before we leave, is that the videos that you put out are excellent. Like, my professor, my coaches have always said, like, listen, you guys pay a professional to learn jiu-jitsu. Don't get down the rabbit hole too deep on some of these YouTube videos, just because they don't know what type of technique other people are teaching. But when you release a video, it's usually pretty spot on, with what they're teaching. Like you released a clock choke video on Instagram a couple weeks ago. That was identical. Just
good.
Yeah, it was like when, and we had just covered it recently. So I was like, oh, okay, that was a great refresher course for me. So I personally really enjoy the content that you release. Thank you for releasing it, and please keep working hard.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I try to provide the content, obviously, but I also try to provide a little bit of the context, because there's so much content out there that I think the next level of sort of service is providing some context. Like, here's the technique, but when do you use it? Here's the technique, but who does it work against?
Yeah.
Here's the technique, but when should you not do it?
Right. No, I hear you, man, and you do great. Thank you
thanks so much
for your time. Planet Earth, thank you for tuning in, and above all, be excellent to each other.